prime matter as pure potentiality, God as pure actuality. Aristotle introduces the concept of pure or prime matter, a form without matter, and matter devoid of any form. Pure form and prime matter are not substances because they are not combinations of matter and form. Let us first consider Aristotle's concept of pure or prime matter and then his concept of pure form. Let's look at prime matter. Prime matter is a limit in Aristotle's first philosophy of substance. Aristotle describes matter as the underlying physical basis of all substance, from the elements to inherent secondary substances. Let's read this one from 1044a, 15 to 24. And it's in green font in front of you. A point now about material substance. Even if we assume that all things are produced from the same primary material or from the same things as primary materials, and that it is the same matter that serves as principle for all products, it is still the case that each thing has its proper matter. The proper matter, for example, of phlegm is sweet or fatty stuff. The appropriate matter of bile, bitter stuffs, or some other, though they may both come from the same stuff. And the same object will contain many matters when one material thing is itself the matter of another. To take our example, phlegm is materially composed of the fatty and assuming that the sweet is derived from the fatty, from the sweet. But phlegm can also be produced even from bile, by the dissolution of the bile into its primary matter. You see there are two ways in which X can be produced or derived from Y. Either Y lies on the material route to X, or Y has been dissolved into its material principle. Aristotle's theory of matter distinguishes between matter in two senses. In one sense, there is matter that underlies all sensible things common to all, while in another sense, every distinct substance involves its own peculiar matter. We have already seen why Aristotle distinguishes between matter in a general sense as an underlying physical basis of all primary substances, and as it is exemplified in particular samples or quantities of a particular kind of matter. In everyday thought and language, we distinguish between gold or water in a general sense and between this particular sample or quantity of water or gold. Aristotle generalizes the distinction with respect to the elements of earth, air, fire, water, and ether. There is a difference, Aristotle maintains, between fire in general as a material element of physical things that might exist in combination with other elements in a primary substance, and a particular fire considered as a primary substance in an actual concentration of flames. Next, Aristotle will draw a surprising connection as I was saying, between the general concept of substance and the idea of a specific kind of substance, which he designates as eternal substance. The following passage, which is in color pink in front of you, makes it clear that Aristotle has God or the gods in mind when he refers to this remarkable category of substance. And let's read this. Our discussion has, in fancy, established that there exists a kind of eternal, unmoved substance that is separate from sensible things. It has further been shown that it is impossible for it to have any magnitude, but that it is without parts and indivisible. The reason is that it is a source of movement for infinite time, and nothing that is finite has an infinite capacity. Hence, given that every magnitude is either finite or infinite, it could not have a finite magnitude. But neither could it have an infinite one, since there is quite generally no such thing as an infinite magnitude. It has also been shown that it is without affection or alteration, since all the other motions are posterior to those in place. It should be quite clear then why the first mover is, as we have said. He refers explicitly to God. It is clear from the first sentence that he is thinking of the theological implications of his first philosophy. The idea of an eternal substance that is also immovable also suggests Aristotle's idea of the first prime or prime mover, primum mobile, that is itself unmoved. This is a crucial concept in Aristotle's philosophical theology developed at greater length in the Physics. There, Aristotle considers an argument to prove that there must exist a god or deity in the sense of a primum mobile. The concept is of a being that causes the universe to begin to move, but is itself unmoved and incapable of being moved. The argument for the existence of a first mover itself unmoved is to consider three conceivable ways of explaining the movement that we know occurs in the universe, and then to eliminate two of the choices as impossible. Aristotle looks into three patterns of movement that seems to exhaust the alternatives for understanding the nature of motion in the universe at large. The causal relations responsible for motion is one, infinitely regressive, which means one motion being caused by another motion, caused by another, and so on, infinitely. Second, circular, one motion causing another, and so on, but ultimately circling back as the cause of the first mentioned motion. And third, terminal and foundational, in which one motion is caused by another, and so on, neither infinitely nor circularly, but beginning with the first mover, that itself is unmoved by any other cause. Aristotle obviously rejects infinitely regressive and circular motion. If he's right that these three are the only conceivable alternatives, then only terminal and foundational causes alone is not only the best, but the only possibility for understanding motion. Aristotle's objection to the possibility of an infinitely regressive cause is that there can be no actual infinite regresses, but at most only potentially infinite series, those that could in principle go on beyond any specific point. The reason Aristotle believes that there can be no actual infinity or infinite regress is that if infinities are real, then logical paradoxes such as those described by Zeno of Elea, a student of Parmenides, would obtain. Now, Zeno discussed several such paradoxes, of which the following is a typical example. Imagine two runners running a race. One runner has a head start on the other, however slight. If distance, as is supposed in applications of Euclidean geometry to spatial phenomena, although Euclid lived after Zeno, is infinitely divisible, then the second runner, paradoxically running at any speed whatsoever, can never catch up to the first runner. The reason, according to Zeno, is that the second runner faces an impossibly infinite series of tasks to be fulfilled before the first runner can be reached. The second runner must first cover one half of the distance between the starting point and the first runner. While this is happening, the first runner continues to move forward at least a little distance so that the second task the second runner must accomplish is to cover one half of the same distance between the point the second runner has reached at that point and the new endpoint reached in the meantime by the first runner, and so on. If Zeno is right, there will be infinitely first half lengths that the second runner must reach before completing the second half length of any distance separating the runners. The second runner can never catch up with, let alone pass the first runner. Of course, in observing an actual race, we expect a faster second runner to pass a first slower runner. Such an observation does not embarrass Zeno, who regards the difference between what is observed in practice and what the rational thesis of the infinite divisibility of spatial extension implies as a proof that the empirical evidence of the senses is illusory. The world, as a whole, is not as it appears, but is rather an indistinguishable one in which motion and change is impossible. This conclusion reflects Zeno's teacher's Parmenides' distinction between the way of being, toon, and the way of seeming. As we have seen, Parmenides' philosophy is also the basis for Plato's doctrine of the one and the many, to which we have now, through a circuitous route, unexpectedly returned. Aristotle's solution to Zeno's paradoxes, all variations of a similar theme, is to deny the possibility of infinite divisibility. If there is no such thing as an actual infinitely divisible magnitude, then Zeno's paradoxes cannot get off the ground. To acknowledge for the mathematical concept of infinite divisibility, Aristotle strikes a compromise by considering the possibility of a potential infinity. The implication in Aristotle's proof for the existence of a first mover itself unmoved is that choice is impossible if there's no such thing as an actual infinity, where an infinitely regressive series of motions or causes of motions as effects would need to be an actual rather than merely potential infinity. Or second pattern, the understanding of a circular motion is rejected by Aristotle for a different reason. If motion is arranged in an ultimately circular cause and effect configuration, then at least some effects must precede their causes. This, Aristotle holds, is impossible because it inverts the temporal order that governs any causally related events, whereby cause always precedes effect and never the other way around. This leaves us the only possibility, and thus the possibility of a terminal and foundational cause, according to which motion in the universe, sequences of causes and effects, do not regress infinitely or loop into circles, but have a definite terminus, a first cause that is in itself uncaused, which Aristotle refers to as the primum mobile. This unmoved first mover causes all motion in the universe but is not moved and so not subject to cause by anything else. Aristotle calls the unmoved first mover as eternal substance and describe it as deity. It is in effect a cosmic philosophical concept of God. Aristotle describes the unmoved mover first as pure form of actuality, where pure matter or pure or prime matter, protehaile, is pure potentiality, capable of becoming any material element God as unmoved first mover is pure actuality. The sense in which the unmoved first mover is supposed to be pure actuality remains somewhat obscure. What is easy to see is that if the primum mobile sets the universe in motion, then it does in one act all that is needed to bring about all the other events that will ever take place in the entire history of the entire material universe. The unmoved first mover affects all motion, involving all changes, essential and accidental, all creation and generation, corruption and alteration. As such, there is no more that will ever actually occur in the world that is not actualized, no matter how long it might take for all the causal chains to play out, bringing about motion from motion and change through change. When the prime mover in the original act of moving sets the entire universe in motion, if this is the implication of Aristotle's first philosophy as theology and of his concept of God as unmoved first mover, then there is no difficulty in appreciating the sense in which God, or the unmoved mover, is already rightly understood in Aristotle's term as pure actuality. This is again Samo't sa simula. Please subscribe, like, and share this one in your social media pages. Let's sustain this channel. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.